Hello, Baltimore Comic Con. My name is Matthew Klein. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Valiant Entertainment, and we are here today to bring you an incredible creator spotlight for the one and the only Mr. Dennis Hopeless. Dennis, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I want you to know, every time I see you, I'm just so jealous of your hair. You have a phenomenal head of hair, sir, if I may say. And as someone who is losing it every single day, I cannot compliment you enough for your coif, sir. It is lovely.
I appreciate that, but I did literally nothing. Like, I barely even wash it. So
stop bragging. Just stop bragging.
My parents can take that compliment.
That's not fair. That's not fair. Also, I appreciate you have a wonderful fire in the background here. You look well set up, sir.
Yeah, it's cold here. All of a sudden, it was warm and now it's cold.
And joining us today, too, is literally the person I'm going to age into in about 20 years. With us today is John Petrie, the Senior Sales and Merchandise Manager from Valiant Entertainment. I say that in part because we unintentionally wore the exact same shirt today.
We're the same shirt. And thank you so much, Matthew, for pointing out both my lack of hair by talking about Dennis's lovely hair and for pointing out the fact he's older than you.
Well, I'm just saying, look, we've got the glasses. I'm losing my hair. You don't have as much as I will when I'm your age. Dennis really is making it out like a bandit between the three of us here. So, so on that note, let's dive a bit in here. So, Dennis, my first question to you, sir. Is it true that you used to work in a comic book shop?
I did. When I graduated college, it was like 2003, 2004-ish. And it was the first time when you get out of college with a liberal arts degree and there were no jobs. So I very briefly worked at a Best Buy as a loss prevention. So a yellow shirt. And I said, welcome to Best Buy, to try to keep people from shoplifting all day long through a holiday season. And I was losing my mind because I just been to college for 5 years and now I worked at Best Buy, and a comic book shop opened in my hometown, and I basically begged the guy to let me come and work part-time or anything so I could have a job that I liked. And then I promptly got fired from Best Buy. So yeah, my first couple years out of college, my primary job was working in a comic shop, Pulp Fiction Comics and Games in Lee Summit, Missouri. It's still there.
It is still there. Now, yeah. John, part of your job with Valiant is that you talk to retailers, literally comic shop owners, almost daily, including weekends sometimes, as much as I discourage you. Have you spoken to Pulp Fiction in a while? I'm trying to remember. If not, we should put them on the list this week.
I will put them on the list for this week. It gets to a point where you're sort of like, I can no longer remember which stores I've called and which stores I haven't, which is a product of age. So I will put them on for this week.
So Dennis, first of all, can you share with us a story of a shoplifter while you were working at Best Buy that you caught?
Here's the thing about I guess I shouldn't tell this to the world, but it's very difficult to catch actual shoplifters because you haven't technically stolen something until you've left the store, and employees aren't allowed to chase you out of the store. So what you would have to do is suspect someone of shoplifting, then call the police so the police can apprehend them. Because if you were to make someone trip and fall in the parking lot, the store would be liable for their injuries. So most of the time we would just watch professional shoplifters on the camera, go into the bathroom, and then watch them walk past us and try to stop them. They would ignore you. Because like when you're leaving a Best Buy and they say, can I check your receipt? You don't have to. You can tell them no and just walk past them. There's nothing they can do. So like we caught, this was a while ago, so we caught teenagers stealing CDs. And one time there was a ring of mini camcorder, basically, thieves that were going to all the Best Buys and stealing the display models. And we caught them fast enough to have the police. So we actually stopped a ring of camcorder thieves in the Kansas City area. But otherwise, yeah, it's mostly teenagers with CDs.
Elliot Ness would be proud. That's all I'm saying. No, because John and I we come from a retail background as well. He and I both worked together at Forbidden Planet in Manhattan for several years. John also spent over 20 years in Barnes & Noble. working his way up there as a manager and HR, which that job I do not envy you having, John, at any point in time. I'm trying to remember. Do you have a good shoplifting story from your time either at BNN or Forbidden Planet?
I have many good shoplifting stories, most of which are not fit for public consumption. I will say I did get punched once. When I asked someone, I was like, "Oh, the cafe is just for cafe customers," but I had seating upstairs, and he punched me because he didn't want to move.
That's fun. Yeah, I remember I had fun. One. I mean, clearly it didn't screw you up in the long term though, because you have a beautiful face. Yeah. Look at that, those cheekbones. I mean, come on. No, I think years of reading
superhero comics made me stop him. So,
There you go. Well, that's the thing. Superhero comics can be educational. I think my favorite shoplifting story was there were a group of kids around holiday time who managed to shove a lightsaber replica into their pants, and they were wearing very, very baggy pants, and they were walking side by side, and they would like side hustle out the door with it. But to your point, Dennis, we couldn't actually stop them until they had left, and usually at that point they make a run for it. So it's very difficult to catch them.
Yeah.
So Dennis, you've gone the gamut. You've done stuff like Star Wars, Spider-Man, Avengers Arena, Spider-Woman. Now you're at Exo Manowar with Valiant as well. Where did you start? What was your first comic that you remember reading?
I remember reading?
Yeah.
I got a 2-pack at a Stuckey's on a road trip when I was a kid that had an issue of Planet Terry from Star Comics, which is like the kids comics line in the 80s from Marvel. And it had a random issue of Firestorm in it. And I remember I was like 6. I didn't understand Firestorm at all. It looked cool, but it was in the middle of the storyline. I had no idea what was happening. And Planet Terry, I guess, is the one that I actually registered. And I now have 2 6-year-olds, so I understand their level of following things. We were watching the first Avengers movie the other day, which is like the first live action movie I've ever seen them sit through. And in the middle, one of my sons turned around and said, "Dad, I pretty much never have any idea what they're talking about, so I just watched to see what will happen next." So apparently that's how children watch movies.
I mean, look, the encouraging sign, though, is that they were willing to sit through the whole thing uninterrupted.
Yeah. When I think that's probably why those movies do so well in other markets. You don't have to speak English to like follow the action part of it. You know what I mean? Like even little kids follow it. So that makes sense that it would be a worldwide phenomenon.
I mean, I think we need to dissect that formula at some point and just make some more money off of it if we can, the three of us.
You know what else does really well overseas is the step-up movies. Dancing movies are...
musicals. It's, movies with musical numbers in there. People dig it. Bollywood.
Yes, exactly.
Massive. So that was your first comic. When did you realize that comics was something you wanted to have a career in? Was it before or after you went into the retail game at Pulp Fiction?
I wanted to be a screenwriter in high school and college, but I followed a girl to Kansas State University, which, believe it or not, is not the best Hollywood school to go to in the world. So I majored in creative writing, and radio, TV, film was the name of the production program. And coming out of that, I didn't have a lot of contacts, and I guess I was just afraid to move to LA because I moved back to Kansas City, and essentially just at that comic shop I was working at, I met my buddy Kevin Mellon, who had gone to the Kubert School and had pages, and I was like, oh, instead of making movies, I could make comics. Because I always loved, reading comics or whatever. So it sort of just I wanted to make something. I wanted to tell stories. I had this job that I hated at Best Buy, and I was working part-time at the comic shop, and I wanted to do something creative. And I thought, well, comics would be an easier thing to do and get published. Like it'd be faster than moving to LA. It turns out it takes 7 years anyway. I think it didn't go any faster. I just did it here. But yeah, then working with Kevin on a couple of failed projects, and then my first published book, Gearhead, I kind of got the bug and switched my interest from making movies into making comics.
So I'm curious because John, you have a creative writing background. I do too. I'm another one like you, Dennis, with a creative writing major, just at the new school versus Kansas State University. Also got into comics through a girl that I had a massive crush on when I was a freshman in college. Didn't go anywhere, surprisingly. But but I'm just curious, what lessons did you take from screenwriting that you were able to apply to comics? Then what were some of the differences from there?
Honestly, what I would do, I was in college. I wrote all my screenplays in college until relatively recently. But what I would usually do is get about a third of the way into something, decide that I could do it better, and scrap it and start over on something else, and never finished anything. And I think the thing that made comics that pushed me toward comics is you're collaborating. Like someone's waiting on you to finish the story. Someone else is going to do something with it, and it's a back and forth thing. So instead of just being me, typing away on my computer and hoping to sell the screenplay or whatever, it was, Kevin and I are developing this world. Kevin and I are figuring out the story, and if I don't get him a script, he doesn't have anything to do. And the collaborative nature of it, from the outset, like especially with creator-owned comics, like you're working with somebody else to figure a thing out. It's not just me typing. I think that was huge. Probably if you get to the next stage of filmmaking, the collaboration with the other people becomes a part of it, but I haven't quite got there. But yeah, also, I think structure. Screenplays have to be very specifically structured to even be looked at. And comics, you're essentially just writing a long letter to the creative team that can be any format you want, as long as it's readable and they can tell what's dialogue and what's panel descriptions. So there's more freedom there.
I love the nature of collaboration in comics. I think is one of the things that makes it so unique when you have, the writer, artist, letterer, colorist, editor, all in there kind of as this incredible team to go from scratch. And I think people really underestimate the collaboration that goes into a comic, from idea and pitch to outline to the script all the way in. To someone who has no concept how to make a comic, how would you describe that process to them?
I mean, it depends. Especially on create your own comics, I've found the best collaborations and the best stories and the most successful pitches come from finding at least an artist, if not an artist and an editor and artist and a creative team that are all on board to make this thing. So it's not like, hey, here's this, 500-page story that I've written. I want you to draw it. But it's like, hey, let's develop the thing. Like, what are you into? What do you like to draw? We both like this movie. What could we do that's in that vein? Because then you've got a partner in crime. Because especially as a writer, drawing is much more time consuming. And if before you're at the level of getting money thrown at you to make these things, which I don't know very many people at that level, you need to both be passionate about doing this thing, because it might not ever make a dime. Like you might have to put it out online because nobody wants to publish it, or you might just be doing this as like a business card to get to the next level. And you really need both people to be passionate about it. So yeah, like I think you find a friend that's a really motivated and gifted artist who wants to work for free, and then you fool them with your charm and winning smile into to drawing a book for you.
And fabulous hair, if I may say. I think it just adds to the charm there.
My hair came late in life. I had it. I just didn't know what to do with it. And also my children made me turn gray, which made it wiry, which is why it stands up and things. My hair was very much less impressive when I was at the trying to trick people into working.
What is the most embarrassing hairstyle that you look back on and go, what was I thinking?
Oh, I have so many. I had a rat tail. I had a permed mullet.
A permed mullet?
I had a permed mullet. I rocked an undercut, like a long skater undercut that was shaved up to here and as long as my shoulder, from 6th grade until the middle of my senior year of high school. So I had some hair. I guess my hair didn't come late in life. It's just I always like the hair I have now, and I'm embarrassed by the hair I had before.
I think all it just means is that you're truly maturing into your ideal hair.
Maybe
That's
in 10 years, I'll probably hate this too.
but you gotta we'll revisit for Baltimore Comic Con 10 years from now for an update on where you're at for them for sure.
Hopefully, I'm back to a permed mullet.
There you go. You it's on camera. You've just put the evidence out there, so now you're beholden to this promise. So I'm curious because you touched on a little bit. What would you say some of the biggest differences are from working on a licensed property versus an established universe work for hire like you've done at Marvel and Valiant versus creator owned like you did with Gearhead and what you've been doing with Sea of Stars over at Image?
Well, there's upsides and downsides to both.
Sure.
The best thing about work for hire comics is you get paid when you turn the script in, which is very nice.
That's very fair. Yeah.
Especially as a writer, like even if you have a budget, usually on creator owned, that's going to the artist as a advance, and you're working for free until back end, so you get paid later. The other nice thing is usually a pitch at on a work for hire book on a licensed property, they're coming to you and asking you if you want to pitch a thing, and you kind of have an idea what they're looking for. So those can be much more, hey, this is what would be cool. Let's have a discussion. It doesn't have to be like a document with beginning, middle, and end and themes and like, let me sell you on the idea of giving me money for this thing I cooked up. It's more a conversation. And actually, because I did 2 creator-owned books and then started working at Marvel and was at Marvel for 8 or 9 years before we did Sea of Stars. So I have very little experience with the like, here's my elaborate pitch package. Give me a yes, let's publish my thing, and a lot more experience with an email with an editor. So from that standpoint, like getting a pitch approved is much easier on work for hire once you're in the door. But you also have, like at Marvel and Valiant, you're serving a master of some sort. Like it's either this is what's happening in the universe, these villains are off the board, or this is what's happening in this other book, it can't contradict, or like this is the direction we want to take the character, like your story has to fit within that. So, you know, you have some confines to work within, and you have other creators, and the decision of whether or not to cancel your book based on sales is not up to you. So that, you know, there's some confines to work within, and then on a creator,
or a pandemic gets in the way of issues 1 and 2 coming out, you know.
Right. Well, yeah, I had multiple. I mean, not at Valiant, but I had multiple projects, work for hire projects at other companies. So I just got pencils down, and those pencils never got picked back up because, yeah, like a 3-month break. Whereas all my creator-owned stuff, that's what I did when I just haven't worked on. Like I own it. That's my business. Like I was able to do that. So the freedom is what you get for the lack of financial security on a creator-owned book. You can do whatever. You can create whatever world. You can use whatever word. You can do whatever you like. And if you want to do it for free, once it stops making money, no one's going to stop you. You can just go straight into the poorhouse, continuing to put that book out for free, which is nice.
No, that's awesome. Well, I think that's a perfect transition into X-O Manowar, which you are the writer for. Issue 1 came out right before the world changed dramatically back in March, and now we're so excited. We have issue 2 coming back out next month on November 25th. So, my curious with you, sir, is how would you describe X-O Manowar to someone who has no idea what this character is?
He's like a ancient badass warrior wearing a nuclear bomb for a suit. Like he's like a super noble, trained to kill with his bare hands and a sword warrior that I guess warrior prince or warrior king, right? Who he like grew up fighting Romans and trying to save his people from being crushed beneath the boot of the Roman Empire. And now he's here wearing a super suit that is more advanced and more deadly than anything humanity's ever known. So it's, I don't know, the easiest way to put it in like Marvel Universe terms is like Thor wearing Iron Man's armor, sort of. No, he's awesome. It's like a badass He-Man in a super suit that talks to him and tells him to calm down and be more responsible.
Now, how familiar were you with the character and with the Valiant Universe before you started pitching on him and came on board?
I read a bunch of stuff. I actually pitched Shadow Man way back in 2011, whenever the original Valiant
really
happening. Yeah, I got relatively far down that road, and then I started working on my first Marvel work, and it fell apart, and it went to I don't remember who did it, but yeah, that book was great. But because of that, I read a bunch of the '90s Valiant comics at the time to kind of get my my understanding of everything. So I read some '90s Exo, a lot of '90s Shadow Man, and then I read the first year, I think, of everything Valiant was putting out back then. So I was relatively familiar with Exo and the Valiant Universe, and then I hadn't read anything for a while. I have 2 6-year-olds, so there was a period of time where I didn't read anything except for like board books, watch a little Paw Patrol. But I've gone back since I've been working on Exo and since I was originally pitching it with Heather, and reread all of the Exo Manowar. So I'm well versed in Exo at this point.
And that's Heather Antos, for those of you on there, the editor on the book, senior editor for Valiant. And I'm curious too. So you mentioned the 2012 run. Exo's had some phenomenal creators and great runs on the character before. What did you look to bring to the character here that hadn't been done before? What new wrinkles can you talk about that you're bringing to our Thor in an Iron Man costume?
I wanted to really beef up the humanity of the book, like get into to Exo's head. Like what we wanted to do, like the main thing was, let's turn Exo Manowar into a pretty straight superhero book. Like put him in the here and now, put him in a city. He's trying to help people and save people. Like what does that look like, and how does that go awry and make his life very dramatic and difficult? And so for me, it was all about like building the family of the book and building the relationships. So one of the big things was Shanhara and I say Eric because I know a man named Eric whose name is spelled that way. I know everybody says Arik internally, but they, you have this guy who's this warrior who's pulled out of time and thrown at all these crazy space battles, and he just wants to solve everything with his fist and his sword. And then you have a sentient supercomputer that can read all human knowledge in a moment's notice and understands the complexities of modern society and what's going to happen if he drops a spaceship in the middle of rush hour traffic, and nobody's going to thank him for that, no matter what the spaceship was going to do.
It's a phenomenal moment, by the way. That's one of my favorite moments from the first issue, which if you're watching this panel and you're going, what are they talking about? Pick up Exoman #1 just to see that first scene where he literally drops an alien spaceship that would have crashed and killed thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people. But by dropping in the middle of the traffic, nobody thanks him. They just go, oh my God, this guy just destroyed everything in Midtown Manhattan here.
Right. It was a nightmare.
Can't get to work.
And yeah, so we wanted that to be a relationship more than, like she's not just a suit. She's a person in his head. She's a person he talks to constantly. She's an irritating voice that's always nagging him and is right more than he wants to admit. And then that's just like a really interesting thing. Like, what would that be like to have a voice in your ear that's all she can do? Like that's, she's trapped in this suit, which is on him or not, even when it's not on him, she's just a voice in his head. So how do they interact as people? And then I also wanted to build a community around it. Like what does his life outside of that look like? Like he doesn't belong here. He doesn't really fit here, but this is where he is and this is what he's trying to do. So, like what relationships does he build? Who does he piss off? Like who does he befriend? Which isn't a thing we haven't really dealt with that before in the previous, at least not here on Earth, in the previous runs, and we wanted to do that, like build the world around him, make that go.
And I love that aspect of your run. Arik has had, his people, the Visigoths. He has built his life on other worlds as well, but he's never really gone out and found a community of his own that he chose to be a part of. It was either one that he was inherited into by his birth or one that he was conscripted into through war. It was never really a place where he got to choose who he would represent, who he would fight for, And I think that that's one of the things that's so fascinating about this. What made you choose to drop him into, New York City, basically? What was it about that location that you said, I want to take this Visigoth warrior from the 5th century and put him into here?
I'll be honest with you. I just said the city in my initial outline, and Heather Antos assumed it was New York City, and I had no reason to argue with her.
Also, it's very hard to win an argument with her. Let's be very clear. John and I know this also from personal experience.
I'm not saying anything.
But, I've been to New York enough times that I understand the city, and nobody wants a superhero book that's set in Kansas City, which is where I am. That wouldn't be very interesting. So it made sense to put it in New York. New York, I understand. New York has landmarks that we can easily draw upon. But yeah, no, it wasn't really to choice so much as that's just where he settled.
No, and I think, John, I want to kind of kick this question over to you because, you've been with Valiant for a few years in different positions here, and you've experienced X-O Manowar. You've talked to retailers and fans through multiple runs. What is it about this current run that Dennis is working on that really excites you, that you think is resonating with people, that you're excited about?
So there's a couple things that are upcoming that I can't talk about but I've seen outlines. Email me privately. I'm just kidding. I'm in trouble. But I out earlier, which was the humanity of Arik. You haven't really seen him interact with a whole lot of people, regular people. There is a question that I would love to ask Dennis, though. Considering we're all from comic book backgrounds, we're all from comic book store backgrounds, and the wonderful thing about comics these days is there's so much out there. There's really something for everyone. But as an employee, the clerk, you get very excited about certain particular books, and then you're sort of trying to always I'm just going to keep going because we went out for a second, but I'm just going to keep going. So how would you, Dennis, give that 30-second pitch? You're back in pulp, and you're there one day a week just for the funsies of it. How would you put that book in someone's hand? I know how I do it, but I want to know how you do it.
How do I put my? Sorry, you cut it a lot.
How do you put your X-O Manowar in someone's hands? Like, what's that? If you were talking to a customer and you were back in a store, how would you be saying, all right, in 30 seconds, here's what you need to know. Here's how you would pitch it.
I mean, it's hard not to lean into the ancient warrior wearing a super advanced super suit thing.
Absolutely.
The high concept of the character is such a good idea. And that's what I would usually do. Whenever I was a clerk, it would be like, okay, what's your favorite movie? And then whatever I was reading at the time, like if they like zombie movies, I'd give them Walking Dead or whatever, that's the easiest thing to do. And yeah, I think that's just brilliant. Because normally the guy in the super suit is a brilliant scientist or some sort of evil scientist. They're always some Poindexter who's put on a super suit and is smashing things up. Like, this guy has no business wearing super advanced armor, but he gets to because he bonded with it, right? Like, it chose him. And that's just a really cool idea, because he would be doing all of this stuff with his bare hands if he didn't have a nuclear weapon wrapped around him the whole time. So he wasn't the most powerful thing on the planet. And I don't know, I love that. I love that idea. So
it's very cool to hear you talk about how it's like he's someone who is not qualified in any way. It's not like this matches him perfectly as far as an archetype goes. He's now thrust into extraordinary circumstances and has to adapt and see what he's made out of. He's not like preternaturally perfect for this role in any way.
Right. Which is, I mean, that really leads into the Shanghar of it too. Like, if the customer would continue listening to me, that's what I talk about. Like, the suit, it annoys the hell out of the suit that this guy just wants to punch everything. Like, you can do all of this stuff so carefully. Like, we know everything. And he's just like, yeah, but I go, punch that. And I'm going to destroy that. That's a threat. The spaceship was going to crash. So I caught it. Now I'm going to put it down and go do something else. Now it's not my problem, which makes sense from his perspective. But yeah, that's the most fun part of the book to me. He's trying to do good, but yeah, he's not super qualified for the job.
Well, and it's the relationship between he and Shanhara, is one of the things that we hear on our end that resonates so much too with returning readers, with new readers, with the shops. Like it's just a kudos to you and how you write this incredible relationship in a way that's never been explored in like this, which is so cool and so fresh. The relationship between the man and the armor, basically, in a lot of ways, which is really a testament to what you do. We've talked a lot about issue 1 right now. I mean, issue 1 ends with a hell of a cliffhanger. I mean, literally a gun to his head. What are you really excited for people to pick up this second issue in November? What are you excited for them to see as we go into the rest of this arc for the story?
Well, the first arc is really about cementing his place in New York and him figuring out where he fits and who he can trust, and sort of the world adapting to him. Like most modern normal threats are not going to be a threat to him. But when you put this super powerful piece on the board, the world sort of changes around him. So like the most fun thing about the first arc to me is seeing those things sort of coalesce around him as he's like personally trying to build a community and like finding a place to live and figuring out like what is his normal life going to be outside of all of the crazy stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of crazy, terrifying action brewing as the world changes to respond to his existence. And that's
I am personally extraordinary. Issue 2 has a scene in it with Arik that I thought just absolutely distilled who this character is for me in a way that I've never experienced before, and I thank you for that. I don't want to give away too much, but it involves handcuffs. But it's a fantastic scene where just like every decision he makes, every word he says, just for me, it really speaks to who this character is at his core. And I was just blown away, and I can't wait for folks to really read it. And it's a moment that if you aren't, that will resonate for you and you'll think about later, which I think is really, really cool.
You made that sound way sexier than it is.
Sex sells. Let's be very clear. Sex sells. We've gotta, go a little bit into the old school Spice Channel at times just to try and get things going. But actually, with that in mind, because you spoke a little bit about kind of what it's been like for you as a writer, working on your creator-owned stuff, during this whole time as publishers have been kind of gearing back up and the marketplace has been going through its changes. John, I kind of want to kick this over to you from your end, working with Valiant. Can you speak to a little bit about what this time period has been and what you've seen and you're very excited for, and how you see the industry kind of growing and evolving during this time and beyond?
Yeah, I think the thing certainly that has been the most wonderful for me talking to retailers has been universally everybody said, nope, our customers are coming back, and they're supporting us as much as ever. They're testament to the strength of the comics community. One thing that I have found fascinating during this time when stores were shut down, a lot of actually through their libraries these days, and they're moving from the libraries, they're finding stuff, and then they're going into the comic shops and they're saying, where are the rest of these books? So as someone who's a liberal arts major and wanted to be a screenwriter and all of that, I'm just wondering, Dennis, if you can talk a little bit about kind of some of your favorite authors that kind of got your creative juices flowing as a kid, and maybe who did you discover at your local library that really inspired you?
In terms of comics or prose or what?
Both in general, whichever you want to share. It's a very broad question, I know.
I used to read so much, and this would have been so easy. And my kids have completely broken my brain when it comes to that stuff. I an Audible subscription actually, like starting in college, where I would get 3 audiobooks a month. And I used to work at a sign shop for years while I was coming up, and I just burned through audiobooks. So in the last 15 years, I've probably listened to more books than I've actually read. But I don't know, I'm a huge Stephen King fan. I know that's not very highbrow, but I love Stephen King, and the Dark Tower series is really fun.
Nice.
That was really inspirational. Weirdly, one of the things that got me into comics as a kid was the novelization of the Life and Death of Superman.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
For whatever reason, that hit at that summer. I don't know if everybody has this, but I had a summer where I did basically nothing but lay outside and read. And my grandmother had bought me the hardcover of that when it came out. I was 12 or something. And I read it all in like 2 days. And then I went and got all these superhero adaptations. Most of them are not as good as that one, but Batman Nightfall had a novelization. And eventually I got to like some weird Iron Man book that was really not great. But that inspired me to get back into comics a little bit at that point. And yeah, I don't know. I've never been, weirdly, as a comic reader, I follow creative teams a lot. But as a prose reader, I would just go like to a section and grab a book and read it. And I'm a terrible snob because I just read it, whatever. If I start reading something, I'd finish it. I love some stuff and I hated some stuff, but I would just grab whatever. So I don't have a great answer.
That was a wonderful answer. What are you talking about?
Okay.
That was a great answer. I'm just curious, like when you were growing up, like were there any superheroes that you like identified with? Like were there any, like we're in Halloween time, like did you ever grow up putting on a Batman costume for Halloween or stuff like that?
I love Halloween is a huge part of my life. Yeah, I'm sitting in front of the stuff that I'm going to use to build my my knight shield. I'm going to be a charred knight. Anyway, my girlfriend's going as a dragon, and I'm going to be a charred knight. So
that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant.
But yeah, my mom and I would make Halloween costumes together from the time I was 11 or 12, and oftentimes, especially when I got older and they would be more involved, they were things from pop culture from when I was a kid. So I've been Destro from G.I. Joe in college. I was Lion-O from Thundercats one year. Wearing that costume required 8 months of exercise. And then, yeah, as an adult, I've been Guy Gardner was my favorite superhero for a long time. So I have a Guy Gardner costume. I have a near movie quality Mad Max Road Warrior costume with the race and yeah. And then the most embarrassing one, I was He-Man one year, and I was a very skinny, very pale He-Man because I exercised to get in shape, but it turns out that costume only works if you're like a bodybuilder. So getting thinner didn't really help me. And for some reason, I thought it made sense to shave my legs. So I had shaved lily white chicken legs and furry underwear and then like leather straps. And what I learned from that is there is not enough whiskey in the world to make you not feel naked in front of all of your friends. You were wearing a He-Man costume.
I really hope Cullen Bunn saw you in that costume. That's all I'm saying.
I'm sure he's seen photos. I don't think he attended.
So we're getting into the back half of things here, but that's amazing. I've never a big Halloween guy, but during this He-Man, what hairstyle were we at that point in time?
Oh, I grew out to the best of my ability in the 7 or 8 months where I was exercising. I grew out a page boy. So
really.
Yeah, comic artist Kyle Strom called it my pumpkin pie haircut because for whatever reason it rounded. It was not a good look. But yeah, it was a lot less gray then and more blonde, and I grew it down to about here, page boy.
Oh man, I assume there's evidence of this somewhere. But
it's probably, if you look up Dennis Hopeless He-Man, I'm sure there's a photo online.
Well, I know what I'm doing after this panel. So I'm curious, John. I want to kick a little bit over to you. You know, we've recently announced that Valiant series like The Harbinger, We have announcements coming up for Cullen Bunn's Shadow Man, books like Savage, Final Witness, the next arc of Bloodshot in January, One Last Shot with Tim Seeley and Pedro Andreu. What are you really excited? What are some of the things you're most excited for coming up from Valiant that you can tell people about?
Okay. Well, it's a little bit of a cheat because I get to see stuff ahead of time. But certainly,
abuse your privilege. Abuse the privilege.
Oh, okay. All right, sure. Then obviously EXO, because I'm telling you, there's moments in your outline in 3 and 4 where I'm like, ooh, you get sneak peeks of covers. And it's like, ooh, what's that? I'm very excited for Ninjak because I love a good spy series.
With Jeff Parker, who was on the panel before this one.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Shadow Man. How can you beat horror? How can you beat, classic monster movie of the week horror? The Harbinger, the art is just so pretty. I'm naming everything because I can't pick a favorite. It's like, my own, how do you pick a favorite child? Final Witness.
Sophie did. Just saying.
Well, yeah. I will say, actually, so I'm gonna fly past that joke super quick.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, actually, Dennis, you are, funnily enough, I was just doing an interview with Fred Van Lente talking about Psylords, and he actually was also talking about how he had pitched Shadow Man back in the day. So, just out of curiosity, to kind of close the circle for me, how about you? Do you have now that you're part of the Valiant family, what other Valiant characters are you like, I have an idea percolating in the back of my head for that one?
So my Shadow Man pitch was insane and doesn't make any sense now. Like, it only would have worked as a Shadow Man relaunch where everything was redone. I still love that story and have sort of repurposed it into a creator own book. So Shadow Man is not it anymore. But I also was talking about doing a Ivar book, and so that most recent miniseries from that was fantastic. And I don't know, I don't even remember what I pitched for that, honestly, but I just really liked that series and I really liked that character, and I think that that style of time travel would be super fun to do. So Ivar Time, is it Walker? Time
Walker, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Well, we could make a musical version of it and do Ivar Time Dancer.
Well, there you go. That's true. Ivar Time Dancer is.
It'll be really big overseas, also. Like, our partners over in Korea and France, they'll go crazy for it.
I actually saw a Step Up movie in Morocco. It was in French, so I didn't understand the words. It was dubbed in French. But over there, it was called Step Up 5 Miami Heat, which I thought was the greatest title for any movie ever.
See, now I'm wondering, is there some kind of hidden thing, Dennis, where you've been watching Step Up movies in multiple languages for years now, just checking out different subtitles for it and different dubbings? But
I didn't know it was in French. I assumed it wasn't in English because I was in Morocco, and nobody spoke English in Morocco for the most part. But I was surprised that it was in French. Also, it was interesting watching that with a foreign audience because that movie is such American obnoxiousness on full force. There's all these cars, souped up cars at the beginning, stop traffic, and they get out and dance on the cars, and they're throwing glitter and money everywhere. And it's a really obnoxious American.
See, now I just think you're describing La La Land because that also happens up there.
It's similar, but more popping and locking.
Yes.
Another thing I will say is Step Up is Cullen Bunn's favorite movie series. And if you get him drunk enough, he will pop and lock at the table for you.
I think we've got a whole new goal for another episode of maybe Valiant Voices where we have you and Cullen on together talking about Step Up, and we just go from there. So Ivar, that to circle back. So Ivar is one. I would love to see that. I would love to see that, and I think Ivar is certainly ripe for a return into the Valiant universe soon. And I think from there, I think that one of the questions that I have is kind of what characters would you be excited to see kind of Exo cross paths with that he hasn't gotten to yet as you get deeper into the story?
Well, Colin and I have been having a text message argument for months over who would win in a massive magic versus science battle of Exo and Shadow Man. So
That'd be dope.
if I can chump Colin Bunn's Shadow Man in any way, I absolutely want to do that. That's huge. And Tim has expressed interest in doing some Bloodshot stuff too, so that would be fun as well.
What's really cool about that is when you go back into the history of the Valiant universe, those are characters that actually haven't shared that much time on the page together.
Right.
Like I can't recall an event or anything where it was really like Exo and Shadow Man, or even Exo and Bloodshot, or Bloodshot and Shadow Man for that level really haven't gotten a chance to cross pollinate. So I think there's a lot of fertile ground there that'd be really cool to discover.
Yeah, I think so too. It'd be a lot of fun.
I think that one thing I'd love to touch on, before we start getting ready to wrap up, that we haven't yet, is talking a little bit about working with Emilio Leoso on Exo, because certainly I imagine you're writing for a specific artist here, and different artists have different strengths that you play to. And can you talk a little bit about that process and what Emilio has brought to the book in terms of storytelling?
Yeah, it's usually hard for the first arc of something because you don't, you can look at someone's portfolio online and see what their work's been like in the past, but you don't know exactly how they're going to respond to the script or what they're going to be good at, and you're going to want to lean into. But fortunately, Emilio and I worked together on one of my Spider-Man Gamerverse stories. So we did an arc of that together. And so I knew how fantastic he is at both like the little quiet moments and facial expressions, and then also like crazy bombastic action, and just designing weird tech and figuring out interesting page layouts and stuff. So I knew what I was getting, which helped a lot. It allowed me to kind of lean in those directions. Because a lot of times when you're working with a new artist, it takes an issue or two to find your groove and figure out, because I can be boring and wordy a lot in my talking head scenes. And it's fun to be able to put different things in there so that you're not just looking at word balloons. And he's great at that. He's great at facial expressions. He's great at putting the weird stuff in the background. And there is a character coming up that he absolutely kills every time he's on screen because of what Emilio does with that. So I'm excited about that.
No, I got Heather was nice enough to share with John and I the inks for issue 3 as well, just to get a heads up. And we were just like blown away by all the stuff that we're seeing in here that Emilio's got coming up and for the rest of this arc. And it's extremely exciting stuff. And again, I just want to tell everybody, like, if you haven't, go to your local shop, go to Cards, Comics, and Collectibles, pick up issue 1, get ready for issue 2 on November 25th. Pre-orders, the date that stores have to pre-order the comics by is November 2nd. So please let your local comic shop know by that date that you want to get it. There's some amazing artwork. The story is incredible. Some awesome covers from Christian Ward, Neto Diaz, Francisco Francavilla is coming up as well, and others. It's a great time you don't want to miss, and it's perfect for where the world is right now. So I want to indulge in a small fandom, Dennis, that I think you and I have talked about a little bit in the past at previous cons. Do you still watch professional wrestling, even though you no longer write the WWE comics?
I occasionally look. I love professional wrestling, and I dip in and out over the years depending on what's going on. Writing 36 issues or whatever of the WWE comic book required me to watch so much wrestling and rewatch so much wrestling. Because the way that book worked is we basically went and took storylines from the past couple of years of WWE books and made the continuity make more sense by filling in the blanks and dancing between the raindrops. And so, like, when they book a wrestling show, they figure out what's working based on what's happening in the ring and chemistry, and then they'll create a story and pretend it makes sense when it doesn't. Well, we'd go back and fix that, which was really, like, it worked really well. Fans loved the book, but it was a pain in the ass because I had to rewatch these moments over and over and over in order to put parts of them in the book. And I was so burnt out. Also, my last year on the book, I went to WrestleMania and watch something like 11 hours of live wrestling in 3
It
days.
was so long. It's been they make that thing so long. This year in the pandemic, they split it up into 2 nights, 3 hours each, and it was so much better.
It was we went when it was in New Orleans, so it was really weird. Like, it was the normal Bourbon Street experience, except everyone was screaming wrestling catchphrases at one another, and everybody had championships over their shoulders. So it was like a wrestling themed Bourbon Street. It was very odd. So yeah, I will get back to it. I love it. I keep up with it a little bit. Like, I look at if something's trending on Twitter, I'll read about it. But I can't bring myself. So plus with like AEW, there's like 47 hours of live wrestling every week now.
Oh, between NXT and WWE and AEW, and then I mean, God help you if you have a New Japan subscription, and then you have Impact over as well on Fight. So it's just ridiculous. Did you grow up a fan though, or because in Kansas City was a big wrestling town?
I was a fan when I was little. Like, I loved, like the original Hulkamania era. I loved all that stuff with Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior. I was young enough to think the Ultimate Warrior was awesome. And then I got back into it at the beginning of the Attitude Era. I was a big NWO fan from the Monday Night Wars when that was first starting out, and then dipped out almost completely until 7-8 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then I, like, when the Shield was first showing up, I got
they were still
and got really into NXT and the women's revolution and that stuff. And and then writing that book almost killed me. I'll be back one day.
Well, the beauty of it is it's the show that never ends, so you can always jump back in. And with the WWE Network especially, like, there's no shortage of content ever.
You used to have to like read Wikipedia, like early Wikipedia, to try to figure out what had happened with all the wrestlers in between. And it's sort of like reading Cable from the X-Men's Wikipedia, where like it sort of makes sense, but not really, and it's never ending. I used to do that. And now I can just go watch the matches if I want. I still have the network. I haven't turned it on in 2 years, so I still pay for it.
I mean, it's $9.99 a month. It's a hell of a deal. I'm pretty sure, John, you have access to my WWE Network subscription.
I'm not sure. When you said it's a story that never ends, it's like comics.
Exactly. It's a great parallel.
And then I just nodded and pretended that I understood any of the other stuff that you were saying.
It's real similar.
Oh no! My first live show though, Dennis, I saw the Ultimate Warrior in a cage match against Ravishing Rick Rude from 1990. So I was also coming up at that time when it was like, oh, the Ultimate Warrior was cool because of the music.
If you were a child, Ultimate Warrior was the most cool.
Yes.
If you were an adult, he was a cocaine fiend who would just shake the ropes and say nonsense. Fortunately,
the matches were always short, so you couldn't.
But it had to be because he couldn't do anything.
He couldn't do much. So if we're getting to wrap up here in the last few minutes, Dennis, what else do you got going on? So we've got EXO 2 coming out next month. What else would you like to plug to the folks at home?
My upcoming slate is very weird because of COVID, but right now I've got EXO coming out and Sea of Stars. We're in our second arc. We took a big break, but that's my Image book with Jason Aaron and Stephen Green. And we're in the middle of the second arc of that, so that's going. And then I have been working on new creator-owned stuff that has not been announced yet, but will be. So if you like my work, you're going to get a whole lot of new stuff from me in about a year, because I feel like I had to launch all these new ideas in the middle of COVID, and we're finding homes, and artists are sharpening pencils. So a lot more coming.
That's awesome. Are they working for whiskey as well? Is that part of the deal you always do in your creator runs?
Oh, no. At this point, I try to pay, even if I don't get paid, I try to make sure my collaborators are paid.
You're a good man. You're a good man on that.
Yeah.
John, what about you? What do you want to plug in terms of Valiant and what's coming up, and some of the folks out there, what they should be keeping an eye out for?
I just really want to say thank you so much for letting me join, and thank you so much, comics community, for supporting your local comic stores and for coming back and experimenting and trying new comics and seeing what's out there. And then I feel like I should start some sort of, if I was on Twitter more than like once a month, I feel like I'd start a Twitter war with you, Dennis, about whether I'd rather have Exo's armor suit or Ivar's, time traveling capabilities. I'm not on enough, so it would be like a very long, extended war with a lot of breaks in between, but
During pandemia, I gotta say, I'd probably rather have the time travel.
Right? Yeah, it'd be a good time for that.
It would be. Well, I want to thank everybody who's been watching along. I want to say thank you to Baltimore Comic-Con. Keep up with Dennis, keep up with Valiant, all the stuff that's going on. Again, Exo Manowar #2 comes back November 25th. Let your comic shops know that you want it, you need it, trust us. And Dennis, where can they follow you on social media?
Hopeless Dent on Twitter and Dennis Hopeless Comics on Instagram. The easiest places to find me.
Cool. And you can follow along too with @Valiant Comics on Twitter and Facebook, and also check out our YouTube. We've got brand new series on there, Valiant Voices, with interviews coming up actually with Dennis, with Cullen Bunn, and some folks who are not announced yet as well. We're blowing up over there though, and thank you all for the support there. And so that has been the Creator Spotlight here for Dennis Hopeless at Baltimore Comic-Con. Thank you again all. My name is Matthew Klein from Valiant, saying stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy, and stay valiant.